الجانب الأمني شملته فعاليات اليوم حيث ألقى الرئيس كلمة بالأكاديمية العسكرية أمام
The Egyptian president delivered a speech to an audience of security-related people as well as academicians. The president spoke about Egypt's geopolitical position, which makes it imperative to face challenges which it shares with Portugal. The president talked about the landscape of the milieu, the landscape of the conflict caused or generated by the unfair distribution of wealth as well as the sprawling armed conflicts. Chairman of the Academy, allow me at the outset of this talk, let me thank you for allowing me to speak to you at the International Military Academy in Lisbon, which is a revered institution and plays a key and leading roles on the international and European levels by contributing to tackling strategic and security issues. I'm also delighted to be among this galaxy of experts and scholars to share with you some ideas about how to confront challenges. Talking about how to confront challenges and its frequent attempts at derailing development, such a talk cannot be considered appropriate unless we know the nature of this terrorist challenge. It's clear for everyone the strategic challenges which we have been squaring up to as international community. Some of these challenges have to do with economy or the fair distribution of the global economy among between developed international communities on the one hand and less developed people on the other. The mushrooming and sprawling armed conflicts also constitute the gravest challenge because it immediately threatens the lives of people and the right to enjoy peace. It also entails destructive effects on the communities it targets. So within this context, I'd like to share with you my concern about the international approach to terror. Such approach has proven to be deficient, as shown and displayed by recent years. Agony, death, destruction caused by terror have expanded to many spots in the world, knowing no boundaries or geographical borders. This deficiency is ascribed to misunderstanding about terror and its genesis and exponent. Of course, we fully realize how important security and political aspects to terror are, as well as deterring and monitoring terrorist operatives. But nevertheless, we should not forget the real motives for terror and the thought which masterminds these terrorist activities. So, to thoroughly read the history of terrorist organizations, whether they are those organizations disguised as religious or those perpetrating atrocities, we find no disparity or discrepancy among the foundations or principles prompting these organizations. These terrorist organizations have always been fascist ones. Those fascist ones always produce a discourse of enmity, which imposes its vision on everyone. A quick look at all active organizations on the international level, we find that what applies to organizations active, the same applies to organizations misguided as religious ones. However diverse they are and however distributed the roles are, the thought and ideas are different. They all resort to the same terms of reference as a framework of work and a perception or perspective through which they look upon their communities. They all seek to exclude others, as well as branding society as blasphemous. All these notions are fallacious and misguided ones which run contrary to the real message of Islam, which denounces violence, terror, and call for acknowledging others, and even welcomes diversity as an important human asset, which will help us arrive at real and guided notions. Dear audience, the reflection, the impact of the aforesaid makes it imperative upon us that our efforts to fight terror should not be an exclusively security approach. And we have to address the genesis, which has already led some people to adopt this thought and to turn them into elements or operatives who are ready to destroy everything. An intellectual confrontation with terror is inevitable. A security approach is not enough. And a security approach is not enough. So let me in the following touch on how Egypt sees how to fight terror on the international level. Let me also update you on the efforts made by the Egyptian people and government, particularly after we have found ourselves on the front line against the forces of terror who have attempted to derail our development efforts. Some terrorist operatives have tried to guide our youth, to misguide our youth into wrong path. However, the Al-Azhar, which has always been a beacon of moderate religious knowledge, has been taking earnest procedures and steps in order to develop religious discourse, to bring it into line with the requirements of modern age. Polarization along religious or cult lines have to be addressed as well. This all has to be taken within the context of law and while respecting all conventions and as well as pacts of human rights. Egypt, over the past years, has been shouldering a lot of responsibilities. Its people, Egypt's people and institutions have not spared any efforts to fight terror. And despite enormous sacrifices, Egypt has been waging this battle not only in defense of itself, but in defense of stability, as well as to protect other nations within the region. And in this context, let me assert to you that Egypt fully realizes responsibility. It shoulders its shoulders at this critical stage in the history of the Middle East. Egypt sets an example of a coherent institution in defense of the principle of a national state against a background of turbulent ocean, attempting to disband and dissolve all regular nations and sprawling clandestine organizations in implementation of ideological plots which do not target the interest of the people. Dear audience, the rising of radicalism makes it imperative upon us as an international community to craft an integrated strategy to fight all terror, particularly on the internet, calling on people seeking followers on internet sites and prompting them to violence. So we have to thrash out international consensus on earnest procedures to bar any agitation for animosity or hatred on websites. The international community should also starve all organizations of money or weapons. Armed conflicts and crises persisting across the world have also to be peacefully settled, because these conflicts provide fertile soil for such organizations. Dear audience, embedded in Egypt's vision of fighting terror is the close coordination among friendly countries on the bilateral as well as multilateral levels through the United Nations Forum. Egypt's membership of the United Nations Security Council and its chairmanship of the Committee Fighting Terror provided Egypt with an ample opportunity to coordinate with all peace-loving countries in order to provide a milieu for fighting terror. And according to the same commitment, Egypt has been shouldering responsibility for safeguarding its region. Egypt would be hosting a center for fighting terror affiliated to Sahel and Sahara gathering. The fight against terror, as I have said before, is not a security. It's conflicting visions of the world. So finally, I'd like to assert how committed we are to building an alternative to terrorist approaches. This alternative would be one to accommodate all youth in order to achieve prosperity for them and their children. In pursuit of building such an alternative which depends on sustainable development and providing decent livelihood for our communities, we are banding together with all of our friends who share the same objective with us in order to build a brighter future for humanity by deepening the principles of tolerance and acknowledging others, as well as building bridges among civilizations and cultures. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you, and profound gratitude is due to the International Military Academy for hosting me. Thank you very much.
وأجاب الرئيس بعد ذلك على عدد من أسئلة الحضور حول الوضع في ليبيا وتوسيع المشاركة في الناتو ومشكلة اللاجئين. أما إثراء البعد الشعبي في العلاقات المصرية البرتغالية فقد أولاه الرئيس اهتماما بزيارة البرلمان البرتغالي.
The Egyptian president has also visited Portugal's president, having written a few words in the Book of Honor for the Portuguese Parliament. President Abdel Fattah Sisi held talks with representatives of the Portuguese Parliament.